Welcome to another production of Source Selection Soundbites. These productions foster learning, insight, and the ability to perform. Today's topic is the limitation on subcontracting. Today we will discuss the limitation on subcontracting, the limitation on subcontracting exceptions, and the limitation on subcontracting compliance periods. Each year, the government sets aside many contracts for small businesses. Small businesses may enter teaming arrangements with other contractors to perform these contracts. In accordance with FAR 9.6, a teaming arrangement means two or more companies that form a partnership or joint venture to act as a prime contractor, or a potential contractor agrees with one or more other companies to have them act as its subcontractors under a specified government contractor or acquisition program. If the teaming arrangement takes the form of a prime and subcontractor relationship, the limitation on subcontracting rules apply. The limitation on subcontracting is a rule that requires small business prime contractors to perform a certain portion of the work set aside for small businesses. That is, these rules are in place to prevent small businesses from being pass-throughs for large business contractors. Generally, the limitation on subcontracting applies to the following categories: services and supplies, general construction, and specialty construction. The service and supply limitation is 50%. The general construction limitation is 85%, and it's 75% for specialty construction. Specialty construction refers to construction work that focuses on a specific, specialized aspect of a project, like plumbing, electrical work, or roofing, rather than the overall project management. All limitation on subcontractor numbers are based on the distribution of the funds paid by the government. The subcontractor cannot receive more than the limitation specified by the small business regulations. The application of the limitation on subcontracting rules may not be as straightforward as anticipated because some contracts encompass more than one category. These are called mixed contracts. Mixed contracts encompass a combination of supplies and services or construction. The NAICS code chosen by the contracting officer is determinative as to which limitation on subcontracting and performance requirement applies. In these cases, the limitation on subcontracting only applies to the portion of the contract that corresponds to the NAICS code chosen. There are several notable exceptions to the limitation on subcontracting rule. The first pertains to similarly situated entities. When a prime small business contractor receives an award as a result of a set-aside, a first-tier subcontractor with the same socioeconomic status can team with a prime, but the work the subcontractor completes is not counted as subcontracting dollars. For example, if the prime is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business and the first-tier subcontractor is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, then for the sake of the rule, no subcontracting has taken place. If a non-socioeconomic small business is the prime, any type of small business can subcontract with them, and the value of their performance will not be counted as subcontracting dollars. There are two conditions for similarly situated entities. The first is that the similarly situated entity must perform the work with its own employees and continually qualify as a small business under the socioeconomic category. As a result, the status of similarly situated entities must be monitored to ensure compliance. The second exception pertains to small dollar contracts that exceed the $10,000 but not the simplified acquisition threshold, which is currently $250,000. In this case, the small business can subcontract more than 50% of the total dollars the government pays. Other exceptions include independent contractors treated as employees and work performed overseas pursuant to the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, or work required to be performed by local contractors. The last and likely more applicable to daily contract actions is other direct costs. Other direct costs can include airline travel, environmental remediation under NAICS code 562910, cloud computing services, and mass media purchases. The compliance period for a contract may vary depending on the circumstances. The period of time used to determine compliance for a total or partial set-aside single award contracts will generally be the base term, and then each subsequent option period. The same can be said for multiple award contracts that support a single agency's requirement. However, for a multi-agency set-aside contract where more than one agency can issue orders under the contract, The ordering agency must use the period of performance for each order to determine compliance and monitor compliance with the limitations on subcontracting for that specific order. At the end of performance of the order, the ordering contracting officer should then inform the contracting officer for the underlying multi-agency contract if the ordering contracting officer knows that the contractor has failed to meet the applicable limitations on subcontracting requirement. For an order set aside under a full and open contract or a full and open contract with reserve, the agency will use the period of performance for each order to determine compliance, unless the order is competed among small and other than small businesses, in which case the subcontracting limitations will not apply. Let's wrap this up. In this episode of Source Selection Soundbites, we discussed the limitation on subcontracting. Second, the exceptions to limitation on subcontracting. And third, limitation on subcontracting compliance periods. Thank you for watching another episode of Source Selection Soundbites. For additional information, check out some of the other videos in this series, other Productivity Partners materials, or our Source Selection Answer app that is available on the Google Play Store and Apple Store. In any event, thanks for watching, and see you next time.